Hello and welcome to Colin Bradley Artcast. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley. Hi,
How you
Steve.
doing?
All right. You're doing well?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Yeah, not bad at all. Yeah, things it's a busy week. It's flown by, absolutely flown by. I can't believe it's Friday already. But here it is. Weekend's upon us. How about you?
Same applies to me. I'm not as busy as you are, and I don't think I could be, but still plodding along, really, I suppose I would say. Um, Enjoying the sun when it comes out. We haven't seen a lot of it this week, but hopefully the weekend will bring some and we can get out and about. So, yes, we're out and about.
Lovely, lovely, very good, very good. We chatted about last week. You were talking about that you hadn't have another picture because you just finished the one that we were showing, and you hadn't have had another one planned out. So talk to us about what happened after that. You found a piece?
Well, I've got a store on my computer, which I sort of delve into. Very often, there are stopgaps in a way. If I get stuck or think, oh, I'll pull that one out and do that, I've always got that, and probably about a dozen that I could actually draw upon. Um, but what I like to do is just something different. So I did have a search and I found actually three pictures almost on the trot, which will go to the head of the queue now. One I'm actually starting on now, which is I decided to do something a bit smaller. You know, we've had a lot of interest in the miniature work, haven't we? And I thought, oh, let's do another miniature. So I put that one on the chocks, and I've got another one that I'm now doing, which is not quite a miniature, a little bit bigger than that. And then I've got another one that's a bit bigger than that. And going back to my shadow pictures again, I found a really good shadow picture. So I've got three. Last week I didn't really have any except my backup, and now I've got three. One's already been done, and the other one's on the chocks. So I find that I know what I'm looking for, you know, and I'm looking for something that catches my eye, and if it catches my eye, then it will catch the viewer's eye, and also in the terms of teaching, you've got to something that I found actually I did find one that I liked, and I did a rough sketch of it, and I didn't like it. I liked it, but I didn't think it would be enough as good enough content. So I scrapped that one. That was ripped up and so I didn't actually set it up as a picture for the class, you know, video, etc. But I thought I'd give it a wheel. So this is what I got up to really. I play around a bit, but I do have a point in view. You know, I know what I'm looking for, and when it hits me, as this one we're going to show today, that was it for me. I thought, oh, that's great. And then I've got a choice, really. I can have it as a larger picture or a smaller picture. What makes me decide that? I hear you ask. Well, what makes me decide that is there enough content to warrant a larger picture? It's like this, the new one which I'm doing, which is the flower picture. Now, that would have been really nice to go with the other flower picture that I did a few months ago now. And I thought that would be quite nice to do, but I didn't think the content was big enough, good enough to have a larger picture. So I've now reduced it to a smaller picture, and it will work. This is not the one we're going to bring forward today. But coming back to that one again that we're going to be showing, that one looks. I could imagine it as a miniature. So I set it up as a miniature just to see what I thought, and it was stunning. Thought it got everything in it. But if you would imagine when we see this picture blown up, it wouldn't have worked quite so well, I don't think.
Let's
This
show the
is
picture now on screen so that people can see what we're talking about. And I see what you mean in terms of the amount of content that is in this picture, um, and why you would make that. a miniature rather than a larger size picture. Otherwise, there'd be quite a lot of sea and sky. And is it going back to kind of what we were talking about last week in terms of how much interest there is in a picture? And you want to, because there wasn't as much content in this picture, it's almost making it interesting by it being smaller. You're creating the
Exactly.
interest in through the size rather than the
That's right.
content.
Absolutely. Well, if you put that against the one that I did with the lighthouse and the rocks and the distant and the waves that were breaking on the reef, which was a lovely picture, and I know some people have made a good attempt at doing it as well. So that proved well, and that was a bigger picture, and you got plenty to get your teeth into there. But this one wasn't so much. It would have been a lot of, it would have been okay, but it wouldn't have looked as good as it does there on the screen. I mean, on the screen probably depends on what how people are viewing it, but it's only. Have you left it as I sent it to you?
Hmm.
Well, it's important because people can see then, the actual size. And because when you put it on the big screen, which I've watched it back on my great big screen, you can imagine that was about 20, 25, 30 times bigger on the screen. But it still looked good. But I think people will find it really interesting. But a lot of
Yeah.
sharp pencils.
I can imagine the detail in those. I mean, I haven't zoomed in on it, but the detail in those houses on the right is so small.
That's right. But very quick. Took me the actual picture took me altogether a couple of hours to do. That's all. But people think, well, where'd you put the 2 hours in? Well, you've got to sometimes. You've got to build the colour up for one thing. We were talking about that last week. Remember, I said with Pastomat, you've got to build the colour up. Well, that one was done on the dark grey Pastomat, don't you? You can tell from the picture. And I decided to do it on that simply because of the atmospheric side of it. If you make something like that too bright, I mean, it's bright enough, but if it'd been too bright, it would have spoiled the overall feeling you get of a nighttime scene. You know what I mean?
It would have been
So,
slightly
so
unrealistic.
it would have looked. It would have looked. Even the photographic reference that I had was in your face. So that's what made me decide on the dark grey Pastomat, because I felt that it would subdue the brightness. I mean, it would have been okay, but not as good as that was when I did it. However, the problem you have, if you can call it that, is you've got the sky particularly, you've got to layer the sky on. Now, the first colour that went on there was white and and grey. Now, and it would have looked awful. And in fact, when I looked back on that picture, uh, the first few minutes of actually doing it, I thought, gosh, I'm really surprised this actually worked out. I know it did work out because I got the finished picture, but I was very surprised it would have done, simply because I had to layer on coat after coat after coat to actually produce the finished result. So that goes, it's pastel again and dark grey pastel again. So you've got to work on something like that, but it's worth it.
Hmm. Was the sky like that in the reference picture, or did you jazz that sky up a bit?
No, I was pretty faithful to the reference picture. What I liked about it, and I liked particularly the indistinct cloud formations. They weren't in your face. Some of my other pictures, landscape, you get a very clear cut sky, cloud formation. But this wasn't. This was hazy, I would say, and I thought that looked very natural. And
Hmm.
one of the things that I found, and I love doing anyway, is making it up as I go along. I mean, I looked at the reference picture, but not as much as I would have perhaps normally done, because if you're following a particular line or a particular style that you wanted. So I kind of winged it, would be the word for it. I kind of let my pencils talk to me. I know it sounds silly, but that's how that works for me. And what I'm doing is I'm viewing the procedure, and then I'm picking up things and think, oh, I like that, I like that, I like that, I like that. And you then develop something that is unique. But if you looked at the reference picture and you looked at the one I've done, you would see it's probably very close to that reference picture.
Do you think you can be a little bit more flexible with a picture like that? Is because there's less to it that you need to be faithful to. There's less content within the picture. You could be a little bit freeball it a little bit with the clouds and kind of do your own thing. And would that be something that you would recommend students to do that feel confident in doing that when they copy your picture? Could they do a similar kind of thing?
Absolutely. I would encourage people to do that because if I did it again, and I often say this in the video, if I did it again, it would be different. Given the same idea would be there, but the different cloud formation would be different. And what I did, I put the blue. It was two blues. I restricted the pencils, as you know, to only 12 pencils. So, and I didn't put any Caran d'Ache in or Cretacolor or Carpathella. It was all Faber. I deliberately did that because I wanted to keep it as simplistic as I can. The idea originally was that this would be a beginner's picture. I mean, miniatures aren't easy to do anyway, but I was a bit ambitious there. But in the end, I said at the end of the video in my outro, this was originally, the idea was it was going to be a beginner's, but I upgraded it to intermediate, simply because it when you're working with Pastomat particularly, you've got to be mindful of all the points I've raised, and I would definitely think that if you've got the experience to do something like that, then you should, especially in the clouds and sky, you could let it happen for you. I mean, experience helps, obviously, if you had done it before, but you should let skies develop themselves rather than trying to force them. I mean, we do see this occasionally when people show their pictures. You can see that the sky, it's been overworked. Once something works, you leave it alone. During this video, towards the end of the sky sequence, I do mention this. I said, now this is getting to the point where if I carry on, I'm going to spoil it. And how do you know that? What experience? It's the only way you know it. But it's best to leave it rather than continue and then spoil.
The irregularity of the clouds, I feel like, is mirrored within the cliffs. In terms of the grass and things, it feels like that's an irregular pattern as well. Is that another area that people could still follow loosely to your picture, but also do their own thing?
Yes, I'm glad you pointed that out because something unique happened with that's not happened before. I started with the white, obviously, and I started putting the white in, and it got to a point where I could see patterns emerging because of the dark grey Pastomat showing through. I thought, hello, I can use that texture that's been created. And of course, very little time was spent on that, very little time, but you're absolutely right, that's what you could do. So put the white, put the grey, put the greens, and then cut in with the water, which is a dark anyway, and that really brought it out. So yes, you're quite right. Cliffs anyway would have to be worked that way. You can't dictate too much. A bit like trees, you can't dictate exactly what happens. It's just got to happen organically.
Yeah. No, lovely. I think there's a lot of actual interest to this picture when you break it down. I know that in terms of the real estate of how much of the actual canvas is content rather than sky and water is little, but even within that, even though you've made it a miniature as well to make it more interesting and appealing, it still feels like what you're looking at in terms of the sky and the clouds and the cliffs, there's still a lot of interest within those pieces, even though they're not massive components to the picture. It's still
Absolutely.
there's still a lot to look at.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was pleased with it. I liked it, and as I say, I'm sure other people will. But I do recommend, though, that if you're starting out and you like to do it, don't do it quite as small as that. Double the size, and make it. I've got 11, haven't I? 11 centimeters. We'll make that sort of 20, something like that, and that will
Hmm.
give you a little bit more to play with, a little bit more. But don't go too big because I think you'll find if you do, you've got to fill it up, and if you fill it up, you might find it loses the appeal.
Great stuff. Excellent. You mentioned that you have a flower picture lined up next. That's on your cards? Is it
Yes,
ready to go?
that's. I haven't started it yet, but I've said I haven't got the pencils ready yet, but I've got the picture ready. It's a little bigger. It's a bigger picture than that little one there. And I'll probably put the size on as I did with that because it helps to people to see it. But yes, I think this should look quite nice. I'll let you know. Hopefully, I'll get it done by next week. And but I, the shadow picture, which would be following that, I had I had doubts about it. I thought, haven't I done enough of them? Isn't there enough content? But this chap he's got I call it the thinking man, and that's what he's doing. He's got his head like that. So you've got hands, you've got eyes in shadow, and you've got, of
Sounds
course,
hard.
yes, it would be. Yes, yes, it's very hard. Yeah. Oh, that will be probably an advanced picture, I think, by the time I finish it. But I thought it I liked the idea, and I liked the fact it was a man again because I've done a lot of ladies, and but I thought, should I do it? But I think I will because I love doing them anyway, and it's more content. So I think that will be the one that will follow the flower.
Excellent. Fantastic. Well, I look forward to seeing your progress and updates on that flower picture next week. I hope people have found this interesting. As we say at the end of every episode, if there's anything you want us to discuss or talk about, please send it over to us and we'll bring it up on a future show. But I hope this has been interesting and I hope everyone's looking forward to doing the picture that we showed today. I'm working on one of the pictures that Dad's previously done. It's hopefully this time next week it will be ready. If not the week after, one of the animals. So that course is coming soon. So look out for that. But for now, wish us good weather this weekend so that we can get out of our houses. And we'll see everyone next week. So thanks everyone for listening. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley. Enjoy
Enjoy
your
your
week.
week.